Hello, my name is Guru Patik, and today we're going to be doing a replay review of a 3.8k support Bane in this game. And I'll give you the message from Wendek, although I think his name in game is a little different. No, it's Wendek. Alright, Wendek. I played this game the other day, and I think it might be interesting even though it doesn't fit all of your criteria, meaning that it's unranked consistently in the very high skill bracket except when party. So I think averaging the game is about 3.8k, about fair. However, I still think it's pretty interesting because I was relatively happy with my game and there are tons of things to improve on. And it was a pretty close game. Only the Lions seemed like a weaker player. Only the Lions seemed weaker, though having to solo support didn't help. Seems like a decent enough candidate. Alright, so you're solo supporting as a Bane. Things that interest me most lately are the times where I feel lost. You can see me doing jack shit a few times, which would apply to my supporting in general as well as maybe a few more Bane-specific tips. I know I underuse Nightmare, but I rarely find occasions to use it, so a more experienced player's point of view on that would help. Okay, so let's take a look. It sounds like you're solo supporting as a Bane, and you're running into a situation where you just feel lost every once in a while. And that's fine. I mean, I think, you know, as you start playing more and more Dota, what you start to realize is that time is your most valuable resource. And when you put on the stream of one of those, 7 or 8k players, they're always doing something, whether it be farming, pushing, getting into a better position, moving to defend a tower, moving to aggressively push a tower. And when you watch your own games, even when I watch my games, there'll be minutes of dead time. And if you can actually remove all of that dead time, I mean, your MMR will skyrocket because so much of Dota is wasted time. Now, running around with your team and not farming, that isn't necessarily wasted time, but it can be at times. So, just something to think about. We'll take a look at this game, though. Looks like you're solo support, which is going to be pretty hard on your income. And, I mean, this happens in pubs. But Bane's a pretty interesting hero in that he's had a pretty big resurgence recently, mostly because of the buffs that kind of changed him. His Brain Sap is now 70 mana at level 1, which is basically spammable. He can get 4 Brain Saps off without any stat items or anything, which is really nice. And what's cool about Bane in a lot of ways is that he has a couple of different playstyles. So even at the start of this game, I would be thinking about what kind of playstyle do I want to play with my Bane, right? And this comes down to what other heroes are in your team and what heroes are on their team. Because, Bane is one of those heroes that can go to the safe lane, he can go to the off lane, he can go to the mid lane. All 3 options are pretty viable. And when you go to the mid lane, most of the time what you're going to do is you're going to want to pick up Enfeeble. And you kind of like swoop in on the mid from the side, or you just walk up, and the goal is to get your mid their bottle first. With the other mid not being able to farm and you just harassing them while taking as little experience as possible from your mid. That's a pretty self-sacrificing play to help you win the mid lane, but if you're really concerned about winning the mid, that's a great way to do it with the Enfeeble spam. You can also go to the off lane and do that, and most of the time, Enfeeble costs a little bit more mana, it's about 95, so you're going to want to get clarities if you do that kind of strategy, but those are 2 options of playing Bane. And, I mean, it could be a pretty good option. If you keep Windrunner down and get a good start for your mid-quap, that would be a pretty good support play. The other option is to go to the safe lane and to do, zoning and pushing people out of lane. And when you do that, a lot of times you're going to end up wanting to skill Brain Sap nowadays at level 1. Which is pretty different, I guess, in terms of playstyle of the past, because most of the time it was, Nightmare at 1 or Enfeeble unless you're doing the Enfeeble stuff. But with the new Brain Sap, it's actually really good at trading hits because Bane has pretty high armor as well as pretty high movement speed if you look at it. I mean, 4 armor, 315. He's one of the fastest heroes in the game, and he's got a really good armor stat as well as a lot of HP as well as an ability to heal himself. He's one of the best trading supports out there right now, especially in the early game. So he's a really good zoner now with level 1 Brain Sap. Nightmare a lot of times is used to set up spells, and you kind of have to build a lineup around Nightmare to make it really effective. but it can be effective in team fights. Like, you don't have tons of AoE in your team. I mean, you have Queen of Pain, who's a lot of AoE, and Disruptor, who's some AoE. So, like, Nightmare could play a pretty big role in team fights. Whereas a lot of time, like, if you Nightmare someone in a team fight, odds are you're just gonna, like, cancel your own teammate's spells, and you don't want to do that. So that can be a little tricky at times. But you have really good setup for, like, Disruptor ult, for example, this game. Normal combos you'll see, though, are like Potom or, you know, other stunning heroes, like Tiny's pretty good, Sven's pretty good. You've got a Wraith King, so that's pretty good. Not perfect, though, but that's fine. Just something to think about before you go out in the game is, like, how are we going to win this game? And in your lineup, you've got a Queen of Pain, who's likely to be your mid. Oh, it looks like an offlane Queen of Pain, mid silencer. And then you've got kind of like this safe lane, tri-lane around this Wraith King. And Wraith King's not very countered in their lineup. Lion counters the Wraith King. But they've got what looks to be a mid-wind runner, safe lane PA, off lane Tusk, support Lion, safe lane, or I already said safe lane PA. But they've got essentially 4 cores, and this Enigma is going to get off to a fast start because you guys haven't made a move towards their jungle to try and block it off. Most games there's an Enigma. As a support, you want to buy wards to block off their jungle. And the reason for that is Enigma just farms so damn fast. Like, in 6 minutes, there's a video link in my Twitch of how to farm Enigma. But you can hit level 8 or so just between these 3 camps and have a mech at minute 8. Like, that's the most farmed hero in the game. So I really think it's worth blocking something off like this, especially versus Enigma. Make him waste the sentries, make him look for sentries. Really good places to ward, to block camps are like here, because it's really hard to de-ward. You can also block this camp like in the trees, for example, or you can even, this one's a little bit more difficult to block and not get countered, because most of the time you just here or here kind of thing. I'd have to look at the spawn boxes. I haven't looked at that in long enough time. There's a really cool mod, actually, or custom game, where all of the spawn boxes are actually on the map, and I go into that pretty often, actually, to help me relearn some of the spawn boxes, because, like, I know this one, like, really well, and I know this one really well, but I sometimes forget the ancients, for example. So, I've done a lot of talking before this game. I just want you, you know, in the first minute of the game, like, this is a really good time to think about, like, what are all my options? How do I play this game? Kind of thing. And, you know, if we look at your purchases as a support, now, you've purchased 4 Tangos and 2 Clarities. I'm okay with the 2 Clarities, especially with the new Brain Sap change. But your team did purchase wards. So we'll take a look and see where the wards are. We have 1 ward on your Disruptor, and I'm assuming Quap got the other one. Alright, so you gave 1 to your offlaner. You purchased the Courier, I saw that. And you got quite a few stats, which is also okay. You have to think about, like, what your roaming potential is, kind of, for this game. Now, you're probably not going to kill a Windrunner with a silencer mid, so there's, like, no reason for a smoke, unless you were looking to rotate and kill the top lane. But, I mean, Queen's pretty active. Queen's not going to want to kill them until she hits, like, level 6. So, maybe a smoke in this case isn't justified. Like, every single time you make an item choice like this, like, think about it, right? Like, why am I buying this Ironwood branch? Why am I buying this Ironwood branch? Do I really need 2? 4 sets of Tangos, like, you could have pulled your mid as well, which is kind of a big deal. Silencer bought his own Tangos, it looks like. But, like, if you pull your own mid, right, then he's 125 gold closer to his bottle. Just something to think about. Like, a lot of what learning to play Dota at a higher MMR is every little decision you want to think about. But obviously you don't always think about it in time. So here you skill Nightmare. Tusk does a nice steal. I think you guys will get first blood here. Nope. Alright. So we're going to watch this, because this is a definite first blood. Like, the Nightmare here on Windrunner is fine. you're kind of like setting up to go on the Windrunner. The Wraith King's more interested in the rune, and I think that's okay. But this is a definite mistake by this Tusk. He comes in here, and he gets trapped. And so what you're going to do right now is you're just going to sit and attack him, right? And while this looks really good because you're in the Static Storm, you have to think about like what he's thinking, right? He's pretty much clearly given away that he's going to retreat up to his hill. And so what I'd like to see you doing is like you just attacked once. Your attack essentially in Dota has a cooldown. And so instead of just sitting there in between attacks and right-clicking a guy, use the time where your attack is on cooldown to move into a better position, right? This is the crux of attack moving. And like here you get 3 attacks without moving, right? Your hero could be out here, which means you would get that 1 extra attack off on this Tusk and he would die, right? And I think he lives because the attack misses uphill. But like you could have been that 1 attack, 1 extra attack that makes a difference. So like right here you're fine. So here attack, and then in this time move to here. So you'd just be moving very slightly. It's like, I don't know, 50 units or something. But you're here rather than here. And then you're here rather than here. Right? And do you see the difference? And then you make another attack and you're up here, kind of thing. So you're flanking him from the direction that he looks like he's going to run. Now, a good Tusk, or Tusk a lot of the time, would be forced to then run this direction. And so you have to kind of be careful about where you're sort of herding sheep. But in this situation, like if you're up here, which you easily could be, still making all of these attacks, then you get 1 more attack when you're right here and he's walking up that hill. Now, Windrunner skills Shackle Shot here and kind of screws you, and she might have shackled you to the Disruptor to save the Tusk too. So there's that consideration. But if Tusk is if Disruptor is making the same movements as you're making, then you both capture the Tusk. Yeah, it's just a miss. So really, really close to getting a first blood. I'm okay with your Nightmare skill there. I like that you kept your skill point. I think that shows a good understanding of the hero. Some heroes you just want to like get their spell at 1, pretty much no matter what. Like Wraith King, you pretty much just get the stun. But Bane is very versatile in his skill build, so it's nice to see that from you. So here you come to lane, and you have to think about this in terms of what just happened, right? You just zoned out the Tusk, and you took his HP down to 10. So where is Tusk, right? Because Tusk is the offlaner you're expecting to see. That big fight where you took all of his HP from him basically buys you like 15 to 20 seconds to kind of do whatever you want. And like instead of running to this lane where Tusk is unlikely to show up for the first 10 to 15 seconds, I'd like to see you run to start to pull. Because it's a more maximally efficient use of your time based on what you know about where their offlaner is, right? There's no reason for you to be in lane zoning their offlaner if their offlaner isn't there. And you have a high likelihood that Tusk isn't there. Now, I don't know if he bought a salve. If he bought a salve, then like the timing's a little bit shorter. And I guess we'll look. This is something we could have checked, but he has no salve, so he's just heading back to base, right? So like in this time, it's a small mistake, but you could have pulled this wave right here into these trees and then double pulled them into here. Although, is that blocked? That might be blocked. Is that word block? What? Oh, you must have blocked it when you walked by. Okay. So this is another thing, like when you were in that fight against Tusk, where if you check his items and notice that he doesn't have a salve, right, like out here in the river, and all it takes is you just click and then tap back to your hero, whatever your hero key is. For me, it's 1, so you just left click 1, and it's like 0.1 seconds worth of time. You can see that he doesn't have a salve, and then you know you don't have to be zoning, which means you can be pulling and maximizing your own levels. Because if you get an early level 6 on this hero, like you could do a lot of work. But like right now, like Wraith King doesn't need your help with the lane equilibrium. This is like a this is just a waste of time by you as well as the disruptor. And here what you've done is, this is like a pretty small thing, but will matter when you get into higher games. Like a tri-lane, the goal of a tri-lane in most games is to zone out the offlaner completely while securing free farm for your safe laner. Like that is what's considered a successful tri-lane against a solo offlaner. And the way you do that is by maintaining creep equilibrium. And here, we've kind of destroyed the equilibrium to a point that can't be recovered, in that there are 2 range creeps and there are 3 melee creeps, and it's very difficult at this point to stop this wave from pushing into the tower, which means that this Tusk, who had a really shitty start, is just going to TP in, and essentially going to get 4 or 3, an entire wave of experience, which is level 2 for him. So, like, this is a small error, but makes a big difference. And I think instead of striving just to have your carry free farm in the safe lane, what you should be striving for is multiple goals, which is to keep their offlaner at level 1 for the entirety of the game. Like, that should always be a goal, and that requires good teamwork with you and your Wraith King and your Disruptor, as well as you hitting level 6 around minute 8 to 10. Like, that's like really, really strong for you. And the way you do that is by pulling and by double pulling a lot and killing a lot of these neutral stacks. It's very possible, but yes, very difficult. So now, like, this wave is pretty much pushing. It's still kind of recoverable, but not really. And so now here, you've seen Tusk comes back. Right? I'd like to see you just walk up and harass the Tux, right? Like, you're not helping Wraith King last hit at all here. You're just kind of watching him. Like, you're safer back here, but you have to think about, like, where are their other heroes going to be? Now, if you're worried about, like, an Undying popping out from the trees and killing you, then maybe you shouldn't play really aggressive on this Tusk. But in this situation, like, you want to bully him out of experience range, and then just trust your carry to do last hitting in the way that makes most sense. So, like, right here, instead of helping him last hit, you could be standing here, and then Tusk is forced to stand here under his tower, which essentially puts him out of experience range for 2 or 3 of these creeps. And so it's just keeping this guy down. Now, you have to be smart about how you harass a Tusk in this situation, because when you rock up, right, a lot of players, what they'll do is they'll walk past here and they'll just like right click the Tusk, and what that does is it aggroes this creep. So this creep will start beating on you, which means you'll have to start using your regen, you'll have to start, doing those kinds of things, and that's not exactly what you want, as well as adding to the fact that it's going to push your lane, because instead of this creep hitting your creeps, it's going to be hitting you, which means that your wave essentially clears their wave faster than their wave clears yours. And so you'll push faster into their base. So what you do as a support here is you run past him without clicking Tusk. And Tusk is going to be like super scared most of the time. If he mans up on you, then Wraith King comes and stuns and you just kill him. So most of the time he's just going to run away from you. And when you get outside of the 500 aggro range for this creep, then you can start attacking the Tusk. So most of the time, if you watch a pro game, or pro support for instance, you'll see them walk past like this, and they'll kind of go up here, because it's outside that 500 range, and they'll start attacking sort of in this linear, or in this perpendicular line, to avoid aggroing this creep, which keeps the lane equilibrium good for their support, their core. This is all like just basic theory about how to play tri-lanes, and it's pretty difficult to execute it, to be honest, most of the time, but
First blood, last words.
But a lot of times, like, I see supports sort of come to lane and do what you're doing right now, which is you're sitting in lane, but you're not help zoning the experience, and your carry is farming, sort of, because of like the offlaner is a bit scared of 2 heroes. But like this in a situation, I like if I had this kind of situation in one of my games, I would consider this a one off lane. And like disruptor stacking right here, which like it's good that one of you is stacking, or I guess trying to pull and stack. But like I much rather would have just seen him just pull this. Like even if it's a single stack, if you just pull this and then double pull to this camp, you're denying the full wave of experience while giving yourself more experience. Whereas what's going to happen, because this guy only has kinetic field, is he's going to pull this next wave, this whole wave's going to die, and they're not even going to kill like all of these creeps. Like maybe one or two will live. I mean, this is a pretty weak spawn, so maybe it kills all of these guys. But you know, you have to stop thinking about pulling as just denying experience from the offlane. It's also your experience as a support, because what you're doing right now is you're essentially under leveling your Wraith King, because you're splitting experience with your Wraith King, whereas Tusk is getting full experience. See how Tusk is almost level 3, and you guys are just halfway into level 2? Like, this is a dream scenario for a Tusk, because what'll happen is he'll hit 6 before you do, before you and Wraith King do, and he has a 2 or 3 minute window where he can kill one of you, because he's got Walrus Punch, and you guys don't have, you know, Fiend's Grip or Reincarnation or whatever to compensate. It's just theory, right? Being smart about how you think the game should go. And like, pulling is the solution. When your creep equilibrium is this close to the tower, you can't zone the Tusk, because you'll take tower shots, and you just can't afford to do that. So pulling is the answer, but it should have happened sooner, because you're giving him essentially this wave, which should have been pulled to this camp. Now, I'm talking about the other support movements a lot, and I know that like it's a lot of times when you queue in Dota, it's like a solo queue, you're by yourself kind of thing. But how well you communicate with your supports often is a leading factor in how well you do in your lane, especially in a tri-lane. So, I don't know if you have TeamSpeak, or if you know, like to type in chat a lot, or you know, just want to use the chat wheel, those kinds of things. Like, don't be willing to communicate with your support what's going to happen. So 3 minutes rolls around. This is the situation as a support where you need to be thinking about, should I be upgrading the courier? And most games, when I think about upgrading the courier, I look at what my mid's items are, which my mid went a bottle, and he didn't get the 2 minute rune. So that means he's gonna want to bottle crow most likely, and I think he's sending out the courier to do that. So you want to crow in those situations where your mid wants to bottle crow at the 3 minute mark, because if you crow right now, the crow will get to him, get the bottle on him, he'll be able to use the speed burst to send it back to base, and the crow will be able to get back to him before the 4 minute rune spawns. So that's like a critical bottle, like buy the mid a bottle point. The other situation when you want to buy a bottle or buy a crow early, for instance, is like, let's say your Wraith King was free farming and he wants a Midas early, like that's a reason to do it. If your offlaner wants items, that's a reason to do it. Just something to think about that can drastically affect the game. Alright, sorry about that. Feeling a little sick. I'm not sick yet, but it's coming. I can feel it. Where were we talking about? Alright, so you've decided at this point as a level 2 Bane to start to roam mid. And I don't know exactly what's fueling this decision. I guess you're chasing the Tusk. Alright. Alright, so this sort of makes sense. You know, you're communicating to your mid. Yeah, you just pinged mid. So Tusk is going there. And your mid's basically being forced to play defensively because there's a Tusk that might snowball onto him, and they have pretty good kill potential. So here you find the Tusk, you Nightmare him. Brain Sap. Alright, he kind of escapes out. Now, you didn't have to Nightmare in that situation. Like, if you think about Nightmare, Nightmare does very little damage. Like, you don't have... So, like, thinking about what the lanes that you're going to, like, what core heroes there have setups or not, like, in this situation, you could just hit him from the high ground. Or you could walk around and start hitting him, kind of thing. Like, you don't need to Nightmare. Like, Nightmare is used to set up stuns in the early game. Whereas, it's right now, what you're using it as is you're just using it as 170 mana loss. Because you're not even going to wait out the full duration. But if you look at the full duration, I guess it's toggleable. So, he was in the Nightmare for like 2 seconds, maybe 3 ticks. Like, you did 60 damage times 66% because there's 33% magic reduction on all heroes. So you did like 50 damage for 170 mana and you didn't set up a stun. Like, don't use it there. There's no reason to use it unless you're setting up for like a Wraith King who's over here and needs to walk in a range to stun, or a Potom who's lining up an arrow, or any other hero with a stun that needs time to basically get into position. Like, that's what you need to think of this skill as, rather than like, oh, I saw someone, instantly Nightmare. I'm fine with you using the Brain Sap. Like, that's totally fine with me. So you've come mid now, and you've helped out your Silencer, who was going to get ganked by Tusk. So now it's 3:30, and this is one of those situations where you might feel lost, right? And you're kind of looking at this Tusk, and you're mirroring his movements, which is a good way to play support a lot of the time, especially against an offlaner. But thinking about like what the next 30 seconds are going to look like, right? Tusk is going to roam back to his lane, and you're going to roam back to your lane. So how can you most efficiently roam back to your lane and still arrive at a similar time to Tusk? Now, in this situation, I'd like to see you like roam around here, stack this camp at 4 minutes by pulling it sort of to the right, and then meeting Tusk back in lane, because Tusk isn't going to get any experience for a little while, and so you'll have time to stack in the jungle. And while like your team doesn't have necessarily great heroes to clear stacks, Quap, let's say Quap was having a really hard off lane, which I don't know if she is, but Quap could come back and clear the stacks with a couple of screams, for instance. A lot of the times you'll have a hero that can clear those, but not always. Bunch of weird pulling. Wraith King's taking too much damage under tower. Like, here, you're not making very good use of your tangos, so just give one to Wraith King, right? Instead of, you know, sort of pulling and doing sort of efficient things, right? You didn't zone the Tusk, but you made your way back bottom, and now you're kind of farming the lane because Wraith King was doing whatever he was doing. You also, instead of stacking this, you could have just stayed for the 4-minute rune. Now, that's like where you're... Like, in the early game, there's going to be times where you just waste time as a support. But, like, you were here, you were pretty close to mid. You could have just stood there for 25 seconds and waited for the rune, and that would have been perfectly acceptable too. Even though you're wasting that 25 seconds, you're at least prepping yourself to be in a situation to do something that's pretty relevant in the game. And so now Tusk gets a haste rune because we didn't contest the bottom rune. That's an option. I mean, I think the most efficient play there would be to come into the jungle, pull this camp, pull it to the left to stack, because you can pull it to the left and kind of do like a swirl to get the rune. If you pull it to the right and you get the range creeps, for example, you can't actually stack it very easily just based on where the spawn box is. Like, the spawn box is kind of like here. Like, the right side of the box is basically the right at this magic bush. That's how I think about it. And so you have to pull the creeps to the right of that line, which is pretty difficult to do when you pull to the right. But the spawn box on the left side is basically right here. And so pulling to the left is much easier, especially if you're doing this walk around. And so when I pull this in anticipation of picking up this rune, I pull to the left and do this loop-de-loop. Because when you do this loop-de-loop, these guys run on the left side of this, which is inside of this spawn box, which means you're not going to stack. Now, if you're more concerned about getting the rune and not of stacking, because this will delay your arrival to the rune by about 4 or 5 seconds, you just go to the rune and not worry about stacking. Like, and in this game, maybe because you don't have great heroes to clear stacks, I would consider just doing that. Like, I'm trying to focus this replay a lot on what you could be doing, because you said that you just feel like you roam around and you feel lost a lot of the time, when there's a lot of things for you to be doing. Alright, so you skill up Brain Sap, take a look at top. When you look at top like that, I'd like to see you look at Quap's items, look at Lion's items, look at, you know, the other items. Tusk roams up to top. You got some nice counter ganks, good Nightmare. So this is one of those situations where this is a really good counter ganking TP. Like, this is really good play by you. But, you know, because we wasted our mana on Nightmare here in the middle lane on that Tusk, we didn't have mana for Brain Sap. And, like, you could have Clarity'd up. Like, that's a completely viable option. And then that Nightmare feels a little bit less wasted. Then you wasted a Clarity. But in this situation, it ended up costing you a kill. Because if we go back and look at this fight, like, Brain Sap does a lot of damage, and it's pure. So it does a pure 160 damage, and heals you 160 damage. So, like, here, for instance, right, Tower's beating on Tusk. You could just Brain Sap him, and he pretty much instantly dies. And then the Tower starts beating on PA, and maybe you can kill the PA too. Or you just beat down the Tusk during the duration of Nightmare. And right here, he's continuing to fight. You just Brain Sap him. And then your HP pool goes from... Your HP pool goes from 140 to 310. And his goes from 450 to, you know, 280. So then your HP pools are pretty even. You're fighting under your tower. You have 5 armor. He has 7 armor. So he's got pretty high armor, as well as a poor man shield. So maybe you don't man up here. But, like, you easily could try to kill this Lion if you want to. Like, you could stand to play more aggressive if you could Brain Sap here. But you wasted your mana in the mid game, and it ended up costing you up here. Or in the ganking of the mid lane. It's still a great counter ganking TP, especially because you know Tusk has been missing. But, like, minor inefficiencies cost you the chance at maybe a double kill there. I'm not saying you would have gotten it. It looks like they probably both had too much HP for you to get the double kill, but it would have been pretty close. So you go back to base, you grab a ward. Yeah, you gotta heal up. That's fine. At this situation, when you're sitting back in base, think about, where do I want to go, right? Like, where am I going to accomplish the most? Or what do I need to do, right? Tusk has gone back bottom lane, and you're kind of roaming mid. It looks like you want to put up a ward, which is a fine play. I think in this game, like at the 6-minute mark, my goal would probably be to have a ward up for my silencer, because my silencer doesn't have an escape. Quap is probably okay with her blink, because, well, she may not be okay, because Lion's a pretty hard counter to Quap. So, like, I would either think about warding for one of those two, or going to harass the Enigma. You see Enigma in the jungle. Again, click on his items. See what he has. See how much he's farmed, right? Like, you can look at him and you can say, oh, he's just got a soul ring. Okay, so he's not farming that well in the jungle, but he is level 6. So he's probably farming pretty okay. So here, a lot of wandering around. And this is just not having a plan on what to do, right? You drop the ward, and the ward is good. Like, walking up here to ward this rune is fine. But while you're doing that, think about, where am I going next? Who am I going to help? And so this is a lot of times where I tell people to bind the scoreboard to their keyboard, because you could just pull up the scoreboard and you could say, oh, my queen is 5. So probably ganking her lane's a little bit difficult because she doesn't have her ultimate yet. My Wraith King is 5, so, not much is happening down there. Silencer is 7, though, so maybe I could talk to my Silencer and say, hey, we're going to go gank this lane, or I'm going to go wander around in the jungle and try to kill the Enigma, and can you just global if I ask for it? Like, those kinds of things. Keeping in mind what the strengths of your heroes are and what level they are can be really helpful as to informing your movements. So here, Enigma goes back to farm again. You're sitting in the river. Looks like you've pulled the queen over to try and gank this guy. Nice, so your word pays off. Now this is a gank you didn't have to be there for. Queen pretty much did it all without you, and that's okay. That's fine. But in this situation, you could have been getting experience here. Now, granted, I think it's fine for you to run with him, especially, or run with the queen, especially there. So not a big deal. Here, stay for the rune, right? The clock and time in a lot of ways is the biggest resource. This is an extra half level. This puts you at level 5. Right? So just keeping in mind the clock. Whereas that's a bounty rune now that the Dire is likely to pick up. It could have been a big rune, it could have been an invis rune, which may have gotten you kill top, may have gotten you kill bottom. Those kinds of things. But it was just a bounty. So here's a DD. Maybe you left it for your Silencer. I don't know if you were communicating that, but... Silencer goes to pick up the rune and tries to man fight a Windrunner who windruns. Alright, so your pathing is a little weird, but you still end up getting the kill. This is another thing. You didn't have to brain sap there. It's definitely safer to, and I think okay to, but Windrunner was slowed and you did have a DD, so if you hit her twice, I think she dies. And you have pretty high movement speed, especially because you've got boots. So, minor inefficiency with mana, and it may or may not matter, but the first time it mattered, this time it didn't. Or this time we'll wait and see if it does. So here, you're sitting back. Enigma has a blink. That's something I'd be communicating to my teammates. And here, you're looking to go elsewhere, which is okay, especially because you picked up your grip. But you could be taking experience in farm mid, right? Your mid just died, and a lot of times as a support, it's okay to be sitting in lane and getting experience while your cores are gone. Because right here, we're wasting 3 creeps worth of experience. You could TP to this lane rather than walk and get 3 creeps worth of experience. That's totally worth 75 gold. I would trade 75 gold for 3 creeps of experience pretty much all game. It's just something to think about. The Silencer TP top looking for a gank. And you threw your clarity on the courier. So you never even used that clarity, which actually might have helped you when you TP'd top or counter gank top. So just funny little thing. Buy your items, use your items, right? So Windrunner, they're all roaming back mid. This is highly suspicious. Right? When 3 heroes are roaming around together at 9 minutes, you gotta be thinking, why are they all grouped up together? Right? And the real, if I were to think about it, I would say Enigma has a blink. Enigma's probably looking to kill something, and the other guys are looking to bandwagon jump on. So, this is a situation where I'd say, top, this would be a good time to gank it. Although you had 1 go back. So Lion went back top. It'd be a good time to gank top, or push bottom, cure mid, tell mid to get back, those kinds of things. Right? You could also be moving to counter, instead of moving to the top lane, you could be mirroring their movements to counter gank, as opposed to having to TP in. TPing in's fine, if they decide not to go. and this counter gank TP ends up working out really well. Unfortunately, your silencer dies, but you get their offlaner as well as their mid. So it's a good rotation, but 20 seconds before that gank happened, we knew what was going to happen just based on their movements, right? 3 heroes walking through their jungle under a ward towards the mid lane, highly likely that they're going to gank mid, especially if you're clicking on Enigma saying Enigma has a blink, Enigma is looking to use his ultimate to get a kill, right? And then thinking about, like, can I be there to counter initiate immediately? Yes, I can grip the Enigma out of his black hole, and then we just get an instant free kill on this free farming Enigma who just feeds away all of his gold to our team. Or can I not counter gank? Like, there are some situations where you just like can't, and you just tell your mid to get back and not get caught, and you apply pressure elsewhere, whether that be the top lane or TPing to the bottom lane and trying to gank there or push there or those kinds of things. A lot of that strategy depends on the game. So here you see 3 heroes, you're pretty much dead. Tried to nightmare yourself. So this death is pretty much, this death is your fault in that you're just playing too aggressively. And you're not achieving anything. So like, you get 1 tower shot off. That's okay. Sometimes like pushing the towers like that is okay. One thing to talk about when you're pushing towers, and this is like a minor thing, but this is maximizing your attacks on a tower when you're pushing. So the way tower aggro works is towers will always attack the unit that's closest to them. So they'll always attack the unit that is attacking them. So that's like the priority. If a unit is attacking the tower, it will attack that unit first. If there are multiple units attacking it, it will attack the unit that is closest to it that is attacking to it. If no units are attacking it, it will attack the unit that's closest to it. And so what you do is you play around those rules. So like here, you can attack, you can wait because this creep is about to die, and once this creep dies, like right now, the tower, see how you're not attacking the tower? The tower will then choose this creep because it's the closest unit that's not attacking it, and you can get 1 extra free right click on the tower in. Then you wait, and it starts to attack this guy, you can get 1 extra free right click on the tower in. It doesn't matter that much for a Bane because you don't really hit that hard, but if you're a mid SF, for example, or a hero with a lot of damage, or like a Weaver with a Deso, for example, all of those right clicks add up because that tower HP can matter. When you see this TP in, right, it's a Tusk. And you should know that from the colors. That's just something you should know from the game because it's pretty important. And, different players have personalities. So it's really important to assign those personalities to their players, right? What has this Tusk been doing for 11 minutes, right? He went bottom at the start, but then realized he wasn't getting much done, and he's basically just roamed and tried to get kills for 11 minutes. So why would a Tusk TP this lane? Well, it's in his character for him to roam and TP for a kill, and he sees your kill. So at this point, you're pretty much safe, but you choose to walk back in. Right, you can hear the other TP. TPs are something that you can hear if you're standing in the lane. You can hear enemy TPs even if you can't see them. So, like, use your ears as well to help you inform. Now, I don't know if you play with music or something, but she comes up, power shots the wave. You decide to soul ring, brain sap. Like, you probably just didn't realize this Windrunner was here, and the mistake is mostly in not listening for the TP sound. If you play with music or if you play with something that's on, make sure you can hear the Dota sounds because it can inform your ability to play. Here you use your defensive ability before you take damage, so you don't have it when they go on you, and then you die. Like, this is a lot of that just boils down to you not understanding the Windrunners there and not assigning the personality that Tusk wants. These 2 knuckleheads run in and die. Alright, so that's pretty bad for your team. But, like, you're looking at that and you're like, oh my gosh, my team just fed. But like that fight started with that bad feed by them at the top rune sort of started with you, right? Because if you're there, rather than like, then Enigma, for instance, might have more difficulty getting a black hole off on 2 heroes, because if he doesn't get you, you can nightmare him, you can grip him, you can counter initiate, kind of thing. You can essentially be there for your team. Brain sap the illusion. That's fine. I'd like to see you just go for the last hit. In the middle there. Like, you're not supposed to farm as a support, right? You're not supposed to. But anytime there's farm that a core can't get to, just take it, right? Because your item progression matters a lot to the outcome of the game. So here, your Wraith King's diving, getting kills, doing things. He's dead. Looks like you're dead too. Instead of walking, you probably could have just TP'd, because you have the tier 1. Like, that's the main reason for having tier 1s up and keeping them up, is that if your heroes are fighting in lanes, you can just TP to that lane and get there faster. It would have saved you 4 or 5 seconds, and maybe you get there fast enough to help your Wraith King kill someone. That situation looked pretty dim. He was diving pretty far, so not necessarily the best there, but definitely something to think about. You counter gank mid. You nightmare the silencer. Can't get brain sap off. Alright, so you save your silencer there, which is really good. I don't know, like, I don't know if I would have nightmared the silencer here. Like, it's obviously pretty difficult to think about, like, what these heroes' spells are in a very short... You have to make this decision essentially in a couple of seconds, or split seconds. I think the ideal situation here is, instead of nightmaring your silencer, is to nightmare the lion or the enigma. Probably the enigma, because the enigma is close, like in range to stun. So if you nightmare the enigma and you grip the lion, Windrunner's already used shackle, I think, and I think we saw that. No, she hasn't used shackle. So you got 3 stuns here. So you're in a tough situation. Like, if you nightmare, I think you're just dead, and your goal is to try to save silencer. So I think if you just nightmared the enigma and then gripped the Wind Ranger, she would have gotten away, because lion was too far out of range. But then lion stuns you, and you're probably gonna die. You still end up saving your silencer, because they kind of mess up their attacks after the lion stuns, but then you end up dying instead. So like, this is a good counter gank in the sense that you save your mid, and like minor things are like who you targeted with nightmare and who you gripped and those kinds of things that didn't necessarily end up mattering here, but just some feedback for you. Alright, so now we'll take a look at the state of the game, because I think the reason I do this in all of my replays is that I want you to start doing it in your own games, right? Well, how's our game going? How are we winning? What's our objective? Game's pretty close. It's 9-9, and as you can look at it, the Windrunner's 7-3, which means the Windrunner probably has a lot of farm, and we haven't clicked on it yet, so I don't know exactly how much farm. But I'd be really concerned about this Windrunner. Lion's still not 5, which is huge for your team because there's no finger. This Enigma has obviously had a blink and been roaming around. PA's been left pretty much unmolested in the lane, probably pretty farmed. So PA is going to look pretty scary as the game comes down, and Windrunner is going to look pretty scary, as well as the Enigma getting off to a pretty good start and starting to be active. Tusk is feeding, but he's definitely all over the map, been trying to gank a lot. So, like, his personality, very ganky. This Enigma farmed a blink and then went and fought and has been TPing and fighting everywhere. So expect him to be everywhere. This Lion has been following around everyone and has been neglecting his own farm and levels. So he's going to be there. Like, they're very aggro, and you can feel that in the first 14 minutes. And so what you want to be doing is you want to be thinking, like, I want to be standing in positions to counter gank their movements, and I want to be placing wards in a way such that I can see their movements. Right? Wards are placed for a reason. Like this ward up here has been an extremely good ward for you because it spotted out a couple of movements. You didn't necessarily take advantage of it. But wards that I would be looking to put up are wards that spot their movements throughout the jungle, right? Like here's a really good ward if you can get it up because it spots these movements. You can also do like lane wards. Like if you can get behind a tower, awesome. If you can't, just lane ward right here. Like that's really good at spotting movements. Other wards that are good at spotting movements, obviously this one's good, but it gets dewarded a lot. You can put one here, which is a good spot, doesn't get dewarded as often. Up here is really nice for watching farmers in the jungle, but not necessarily good for movements. Again, movements, like wards under towers, is what I generally think. Or behind towers even, like right here. Or like right here. Like if you could walk up through the river and drop a ward here. Now it's a little risky, obviously, because if you walk through a ward, you're probably going to die. But you can smoke to do it if you want. Just kind of depends on how the game is going. But overall, like your game looks like it's going okay right now. Other things that are happening in the game, your Wraith King, probably okay farm. Your Queen's been doing okay. Your Silencer's been doing okay, but nobody on your team is killing it like Ghost Windrunner. So I'd say you're kind of behind right now, and your goal is going to be to try to snowball one of your heroes. So Disruptor just dewards one of their wards. I really don't like this ward. Like at all, because it just gets dewarded all the time. So like the wards that don't get dewarded, right, are, I think you should have died here, but Tuss didn't react. But the ward that doesn't get dewarded here, that you'll see every once in a while in pro games, is right here. Gives very similar vision. It doesn't see up this hill, but it doesn't get dewarded. And you can place it, like you kind of do the same thing. You walk up this hill like you're warding here, and people drop this sentry here to deward, and then you drop it from down here, and it's outside the range of that sentry. So right here, or like here, somewhere in that range. Alright, and so you're sitting mid. Alright, this is just one thing about supporting. When you come mid and you sit behind a hero, like looking to counter gank, don't walk into lane. Like, don't show yourself. Keep in mind what their vision is, because when you walk into lane like that, and you're basically telling their team, Bane is mid, right? You don't want to be telling their team Bane is mid. You want to be telling them Bane is missing. Because if you're telling them Bane is missing, then they're scared to gank bottom, then they're scared to gank top, because Bane might be sitting behind him ready for a grip. When you walk into lane like that and show yourself, you're basically telegraphing your movements, and the next 40 seconds of your movements are, or 30 to 40 seconds of your movements are basically planned. Because if you were mid 5 seconds ago, odds are you're going to rotate bottom, or you're going to rotate top. Those kinds of things. Like, they know where you are now, as opposed to you being off the map. It's a really important factor to counter ganking. So Windrunner comes bottom, Disruptor gets a nice glimpse. You grip. Grip was okay here. You didn't necessarily have to grip because she was trapped in the static field. Because like now it's on cooldown for 2 minutes. Like, it's a pretty long cooldown spell. So I don't think I would have gripped there, even though you have Wraith King. You have Wraith King to stun. Like, I'm pretty sure she was just dead. So kind of a waste of your skills. Still ends up being okay. Now we're like roaming back mid, right? Like, there's a lot of roaming in this game, and roaming can be fine for supports. But I think your roaming isn't always accomplishing anything, and it's leading to a lot of inefficiency for you. So think about it. Like, why is Lion there? Right? Lion is likely trying to farm his Blink, or he's likely trying to get level 6. Right? He's just at level 6. So that's one of those things. You walk up again, and you walk up into lane and show yourself. So we'll look at it from their perspective. Like, I'll look at it from this Lion's perspective, and we'll go back. So Silencer's here. Like, they can see you, obviously, because of this ward. But when you walk down this hill, you're walking in range of his vision. So like even if they didn't have this ward, they'd be able to see you. And again, like you're telegraphing the next 30 seconds. I'm on the map. I am mid. Don't gank my lane. Like don't let me get a good counter gank on you. Right? Stay in the trees. Stay in the fog. Abuse their vision or their lack of vision to your advantage. So we run back bottom. There's a bounty rune. You ping it out for your mid. Your mid's not interested. Just take it. Right? Rune's a scary place to be, especially against a Blink and a Tusk. So go get it, kind of thing. But you could have been at that rune 30 seconds earlier. Like minor things. Here, if you had grip, you could kill the Windrunner, but you used it earlier. So here she windruns in a weird way. She shackles you. You nightmare yourself. Die to finger. Pretty good choices, honestly. But again, this is a situation where you used your grip in a situation where you didn't have to, and you didn't have it for a big fight. I don't think your decision making during this fight was... I thought it was pretty good, honestly, during this fight. So, I'm not gonna, like, get too into it. But I think this Windrunner dies if you have a grip. Because the grip range is just longer. Like, what's the range on this? I mean, it says the range is small. But we all know that's bullshit. If you've ever played Bane, you can grip people from, like, a screen away. But, like, this is apparently what the range is. But the range is definitely longer than Lightyear. See? Like, there's big differences in their range. So here you respawn, you TP bottom, you walk into the black hole. When it could have been gripped, like, minor thing. Grip a creep, misclicks, they happen. I'm not going to harp on it too long. There, like, obviously you don't want to walk into the black hole. You want to get the grip off on the Enigma so that they can't black hole, and then, you know, grip the Mortrid kind of thing. But right now, like, this is just kind of like a... You lost the fight the first time, and your team kind of runs back, and you kind of, like, rejoined a continuing fight, but you're outmanned, and so you lose that fight, essentially. Like, when the fight doesn't go well the first time, a lot of times just let it go. Don't chase mistakes. There's a lot of times in Dota where you'll just make a mistake, right? Like, you'll grip a creep, for example, and, you know, it was like, oh, that could have been a kill. I guess I'll just keep going after this guy because I should have gotten that kill, therefore I'm just going to get that kill in a different way. Like, don't chase your mistakes. Because when you chase your mistakes, you end up dying a lot of times. And I think you're thinking, like, oh, I'm super frustrated that I gripped that creep, or didn't have my ultimate for that first fight, and you end up chasing after, you know, a kill that you should have had, and it ends up getting you killed. So here, good understanding. Pure damage nuke affects the siege creep in a pure damage way. Like, if you'd used a nuke on it, and it wasn't pure damage, it'd be pretty bad. Good understanding. But again, here, like, I'm okay with you farming that, especially because no one was farming it, but you're telegraphing, like, hey, Bane was bottom, right? So they're on the other team are thinking, Bane was bottom, likely to be rotating mid, likely to be sitting behind top, right? Your movements are telegraphed for the next 15, 20 seconds. So they're not going to be ganking top, they're not going to be pushing top. They're not going to be making, like, your movements allow them to do things on the map. And again, here, you show up in lane, you show yourself. Bane is now top. 30 seconds, like, of, like, Bane is top, we should play around that. Like, this is the situation in the game where you kind of feel like you're just wandering around and you're not accomplishing anything, and I think that's definitely true. But, like, you can just go jungle. You know? Like, Bane's not a great jungler, don't get me wrong, but you have a soul ring. You have infinite, like, brain saps. You could be jungling right now and getting yourself closer towards a blink, finishing up an arcane boots maybe, like that would help you farm faster. You could be looking towards a BKB, like those kinds of items. Stacking for your Wraith King, like lots of options for you. You could be smoking, sitting behind your teammates with a smoke. You could be initiating some sort of aggressive movements, like lots of different things you can be doing, but instead you're kind of just roaming to where the farm is, like getting 1 or 2 last hits and then retreating because you're scared. And all you're doing is you're just telegraphing your movements. Now here is a good situation where I think I'm okay with you standing in lane, because you have 3 heroes sitting behind you. So it's kind of like a bait until Quap shows herself, right? Like, a lot of people in this bracket, they just show themselves. Like here, Disruptor, he just showed himself in lane. So like, they know there's 3 heroes there. Windrunner was there. If she had a blink, maybe she's thinking about going on that. Or if Lion had a blink, maybe he's thinking about going on that. Like, those are situations where you can bait. And instead of showing yourself, you just sit in the back and wait. Here you go for the point booster. Alright, so let's think about item builds. Point booster makes you tankier, which I don't know if that's necessarily what you need. Like, your item build should facilitate what your problems are in fights. So your problems most of the time are positioning, because you're a Bane. And Bane's problems are pretty much always positioning. So like, blink is always a high priority on targets. The other thing that could be an issue, for example, is like saving one of your cores. Wraith King's not exactly a core you want to save, but maybe Silencer is. So maybe you're thinking like Glimmer Cape, because if they go on Silencer, you can Glimmer Cape him out of a Shackle Shot, for instance, or Glimmer Cape him out of a Black Hole, or those kinds of things. You could also be thinking like, I need more interrupts. Maybe I get a Yules to help interrupt things. I could be thinking Ghost Scepter, right? Like, if PA jumps you, and you don't have Nightmare up, you're probably gonna die. Right? Be thinking about like how the fights could go and what items could intervene to help you in certain situations. I definitely think the blink is the right choice here, just because you want to be staying behind your team far enough that you can't get black holed, and the blink would allow you to essentially blink into a position where you can grip an Enigma who's black holing, or a Windrunner who's focus firing, or you can blink away from a snowball. I think it just has a lot of uses. You could also go BKB. So here, you get black hold. You get a nice grip. Big team fight. Good Nightmare. I really like that Nightmare. Alright, we'll watch this fight again. Alright, that's loud. Hopefully you're not doing that the rest of the game. I might just reload it. So, they initiate on your Wraith King. And like, this is a situation where you want to try to help your Wraith King. But I think instead of walking right next to him, you want to walk over here. Because what ends up happening is, like, Lion, it's very likely that after Lion hexes, he's probably going to stun the Wraith King. So just walking into the Lion stun where the Lion's like targeting the Wraith King and he just gets you for free, it's kind of like it's just a bad play. Honestly, it's just a bad positioning thing. So like, you want to move to a position where you're not going to get double stunned. If you're out here, maybe you're a little at risk for Black Hole, but you're not at risk for Shackle. If you're over here, you're at risk for Shackle, but you're not at risk for Black Hole. So like, all of your positioning movements have like, there's no position that's entirely safe all the time. You kind of have to pick and choose based on what you think's going to happen. The Windrunner's already focused the tower, so like, focus fired the tower, so I'm a little bit not worried about getting shackled by her, whereas Lion still has Finger, so I'm a little bit worried about getting stunned by him, just like Enigma has Black Hole. So like, I think the ideal positioning would be over here this time, just based on the fact that this spell is on cooldown. But minor thing, like, this is like, you got Black Hold, and maybe you couldn't avoid getting Black Hold, but you definitely could have avoided getting hit for 200 damage by this Lion. So Black Hole hits, doesn't hit the Silencer though. Silencer gets a really nicely timed ult. Here, you run, right? I understand your first inclination is to run, but this is a situation where you're actually winning the fight, right? Like, and you kind of panicked, right? Oh my god, I got Black Hold, instantly click back. But like, here, you could be gripping the Windrunner rather than retreating, right? They're all silenced. Like, they're global. If you grip this Windrunner here, Windrunner dies. But instead what you do is you run, and you essentially overkill this Enigma. This Enigma is already dead. Like, this is a waste of brain sap. You're killing him like a quarter of a second faster, and the Windrunner gets away, rather than you were in range for grip and just gripping the Windrunner, right? Whereas Enigma was already dead, because Wraith King stunned, you nuked, these guys are going to kill him in a quarter of a second. If this guy's gripped and his team can't help him because they're all silenced, Windrunner's also going to die. Right? Minor things. Here, you get a... Like, look at this. We're going to check this range, because this range is freaking bullshit. So... Oh, come on. Show me the range. Are you not going to cooperate anymore? There it is. See, look at that. Like, that's way the frick out of range. There's no way. Like, Fiend's Grip has a much longer range than Nightmare. That's all this picture is. So your Nightmare ends up being okay, when it could have been amazing, right? If you'd gotten that Windrunner. So here, Shackle hits. This is a really good Nightmare. You kill the Lion with your Brain Sap. I'm fine with that there, but Windrunner ends up getting away. Now, if you had instantly gripped the Windrunner, I think the fight would have been you kill the Enigma and you kill the Windrunner, and the other three don't come in. So, like, there's some argument to be made that the fact that you didn't grip that Windrunner when it was ideal to got you a kill on PL. But I don't know. It's just more mistakes made by them, kind of thing. Like, you made a mistake, therefore they made more mistakes, and PA died. Like, I don't think you want to be thinking about Dota that way. Alright. So, you guys kill a bunch of heroes, push towers. This is good. You enfeeble the illusion. Windrunner tries to shackle Disruptor. Alright, a lot of running around. Nothing's really happening here. Like, take the tower. This is a situation where you take the tower. You do as much damage to this tier 2 as you can, because that damage will become relevant later. And then you just back when they start to engage, kind of thing. You have to be a little careful because Tusk has pretty good catch, Windrunner has pretty good catch, and PA is pretty good at catching. Honestly, their team is very good at catch. And what I mean by catch is like grabbing you and pulling you out of, or if you're pushing a tower, for instance. Catch is essentially they're instantly on top of you and you can't get away. So it's kind of like the strength of their lineup, so you have to play more careful because of how good their catch is. Again, we'll take a look at the state of the game. Windrunner's died a couple times, so she's not as big an issue. Although PA is starting to get some kills, so PA is starting to be a bit of a worry. Lion's still level 9, so he's pretty far behind. Enigma's been roaming a lot, and his farm has been gimped a lot because of his early blink aggression. So he's a little bit behind. Tusk, been doing a lot, honestly. He's been involved in pretty much all their kills, and is really the driving engine behind their kills. You're doing okay. Just some small, like, quick decisions where you could improve. Definitely some movements where you can improve, especially abusing vision. Like, I think that's the biggest thing you want to work on. Is, like, here, you walk top, you show yourself, and that can be okay. Like, but, like, what are you farming for, right? Are you farming for that key item? Yeah, I mean, I guess you're trying to finish your eggs. But, like, right now, you'd have your blink. And I think your blink at 26 minutes would be a lot more relevant than a Aghanims. Or a BKB, for instance. Like, if you get a BKB, nothing can stop your grip except Walrus Punch and Black Hole. Like, that's a pretty big deal on Bane. I just don't think the Aghanim's good enough to justify getting it, especially when most of their lineup is not right-click you. So they gank bottom, you TP bottom, but don't have a tier 2, so you can't really get there quick enough. So Black Hole happens, good silence. You enfeeble and then grip. I mean, you could have just gripped him. The Enfeeble ends up working out, though. Silencer thought he was dead, but missed. You get your Wraith King shackled. That's a pretty bogus shackle, honestly. I think your positioning was okay there. Silencer's making plays. Gets the kill. So you talked about how you were mostly solo supporting this game, and I haven't seen you been doing a lot of, like, ward items, those kinds of things supporting. So, like, you feeling like a solo support? Alright, this is a kill on Windrunner. 100%. Like, Silencer might still end up getting her. But we're gonna go back, because this is, like, a definite mess up by you. So here, like, I like that you Enfeeble, and I like that you Brain Sap. Right? This is good, because what you're doing is you're essentially doing damage to the Windrunner while preventing your Silencer from dying. But right here, Nightmare. Right? And maybe you just misclicked. I mean, I don't even think you were trying to Nightmare. But, like, if you have to anticipate, like, what's the Windrunner thinking? And the Windrunner is going to be thinking, I'm going to try and kill this Silencer, and if somebody comes, I'm going to Windrun and run away. Like, that's her logic. Especially because 3 of her teammates are dead. Your logic should be, if I can Nightmare this Windrunner as she Windruns, she won't be able to run away and she'll die. Right? Anticipating their movements can inform your movements. And, like, Silencer may end up getting her. I don't know. We'll see. But she was 100% dead if you got the Nightmare off there. And some of that just comes to anticipating your opponents rather than reacting to your opponents.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
But you're right, you just roam around a lot. And roaming can be okay. Like, sitting behind your cores, totally fine. Like, if you watch a pro game, a lot of times they'll just have, like, 2 or 3 heroes sitting behind cores. Or 2 or 3 supports just sitting behind their cores. And they'll do that for, like, 30 minutes until 40 minutes. Because it's really scary for you to go out on your own, right? If Tusk catches you, you're dead. If Windrunner catches you, you're dead. Like, that's really scary. Especially, like, maybe PA, you could save yourself against PA. But, you know, like, here, just roam with your team kind of thing. Rather than roaming around and doing your own thing. Because, like, if you had stayed with this Silencer, you'd be up there for that fight. Like, your goal as a Bane is to be there to support your team in fights. And currently, a lot of fights are happening without your support. Or you're unable to be there. And a lot of it's just because, you know, in Dota we play by ourselves. But it really is a team game. And, you know, at the 30-minute mark, you got to be thinking, like, there's not much I can accomplish by myself, and I'm not a very good solo farmer. So if I'm not farming and I'm not accomplishing a lot, then I just want to be there with my team when things happen. And the way you want to be there with your team is you want to be standing out of vision, out of range of AoE spells, but close enough that if they engage, you can engage within half a second or a second. So, like, right now, like, see how your team is mid, you want to be standing behind them in such a way that you're not in vision. So you're not telegraphing that you're there. Like this, you're telegraphing that you're here. They know 3 heroes are mid. You want to be standing further back. You buy some wards. You're really fond of this ward position. This is something that just happens when you play support, right? You just get really fond of specific ward positions. But, like, ward for a purpose, rather than just warding because you like that spot. Like, what does this ward accomplish? Ask yourself that. Like, what rotations does it see? What am I preparing for? Right? At this situation, what would I be thinking about trying to ward? Right? The game's been going, it's become very fight-oriented, and this happens at, like, 3.8k a lot, because I play with my, like, 3k friends, and our MMR averages out to be about 4k, so we play a lot in this bracket when I play with them. And what the game ends up being is for the next 10 minutes, everyone's just going to, like, stand around mid, but nobody has any blink daggers or any initiation. So neither team initiates on the other team. And you just kind of, like, sit and farm and there's no wards up or anything, so everyone's super scared and doesn't do anything. You just farm your own jungle, they farm their own jungle, and you trade the farm in the mid lane with occasional pushes on the side lanes. Like, that's kind of what this looks like. But like, what you should be thinking is like, what objectives are we looking to accomplish next, right? They have all their tier 2s up, so it'd be really nice if we could get their tier 2s down, right? Try to get wards down in a way that facilitate you getting one of those objectives, right? Pick an objective. Like, look at the towers. Like, which towers are up? This one is full HP. This one is full HP. This one is full HP. Alright, so they're all full HP, so there's no like easy pick off tower, right? But maybe we could sneak a Roche, right? Let's get some wards up in the Roche area. Like, ward here, ward here, ward here, like, ward here. Like, all of these spots are different spots, and they're spots for a reason. This protects your Roche. This protects your Roche. This helps you take the tower. This is a ward that doesn't get dewarded. This is a ward that's up under that tier 2, helps you push that tower. Behind this tower, pushes that tower. Like, you know, a lot of supports complain that they don't have a big impact on the game at this point. But what I found with warding is your team will flock to where they can see things. So as a support, you control where the game goes just by your placement of vision, right? People aren't stupid. They're not going to, like, this silencer is not going to run up and push this tower if he can't see anything. But if he can see behind the tower and knows nobody's coming, he'll go up and push that tower. So if you ward behind the tower in such a way that he feels safe pushing it, he'll push it. You know? It's almost manipulative in a way, but as a support, you control a lot of the action, especially with how you ward. But like here, just lots of roaming around. And they have better pickoffs than you. They have more mobility, so they're able to take advantage of heroes that are out of position. Here, I would be super scared, honestly. You're not, but the reason I say that is Tusk threw an Ice Shards at you, which is a pretty aggressive move. And he might just be doing it to harass you. But I don't know. I consider that a sign of aggression. And most of the time when you see a sign of aggression as a support, you don't really want to mess with him any longer. You either back or you go on him. You don't like half-ass it or midway it. What am I trying to say? You don't see that sign of aggression and do nothing. But again, here you're farming mid, but you're not really farming because your silencer's farming. Like here, don't show yourself. Be standing up on this hill, right? If they go on your silencer, you're there to counter-initiate, but you're out of vision. So here you get your Ags, your team's standing under your tower, super scared, like, smoke, right? Smoke with 3 wards in your inventory. Right? You have enough gold right now to buy 1 extra ward, and let's see, how many wards are up? So you have 1 ward up, right? Like, buy a smoke, get 2 wards. Like, smoking to ward in this stage of the game, totally fine, because it gives you vision and gets you ready. A lot of times what will happen is if you're good about keeping wards up throughout the game, you won't need to smoke for vision because you'll always have vision, kind of thing. So continuity of vision is not something people talk about a lot of the time. But oftentimes if you keep vision up on the map at all times, you don't run into these situations where you have like no vision on the map. Granted, you have 1 ward, but it's scary to ward at this point because you only have that 1 ward. So your team's looking for a wraparound, you show yourself mid again, but this is fine because you're looking to engage with your team. I'd like to see you looking at the fight. Silencer's blowing global. You grip Enigma. I mean, you're just kind of a late adapter to the fight, and I think it's just because you didn't go blink, or you didn't go for staff, or any kind of mobility items. So like your positioning has to be absolutely perfect when you don't have a mobility item. Whereas when you have a mobility item, you can afford to be out of position by a screen, for example, and then be into position instantly. It's just, it buys more leeway. That's why it's the most popular item, and I think probably the most powerful item in Dota. Let's see. So more wards. I'm fine with this ward. What does this ward accomplish? This ward it's a Roche ward, right? They're roaming towards you, which means they have vision of you. So this is a situation where they were running at you, but you were out of range of their vision. So you, by walking here, must have been under vision, right? Like, why would they walk this direction? They're chasing you. That's what it looks like. But how would they be able to see you because they're out of range? And you have to assume that that's vision. And like, we know because we're cheaters or whatever you want to call it, but there's a word right here. But you should know that just based on how they move. Now, granted, they could just be going to Roche, and so if they like beeline it into Roche, then you could say, well, maybe there's not a ward there. But their movements can inform where they have vision, which can inform where you'd want to deward. Right? It's not like some mystery where their wards are. But Courier's sitting up there. That would make me think they're smoked on top of their hill, but 2 showed bottom, so maybe not. Like, here, I'd spend most of this part of the game, like, looking at the minimap, honestly. They're bottom. Like, it's super dangerous for you to walk this way. You might just die right here. Like, they just showed 2 bottom. It's very likely for them to gank this way. So I would have definitely been staying back here, or even retreating this way, rather than assuming they backed and getting caught. Every time you watch, like, Sing Sing is like a pretty interesting streamer to watch because he dicks around for the first like 15 minutes every game. He does like roaming, Spectre, ganker, YOLO builds. You know, he does these like crazy builds, and you're like, how does this stuff work? And the reality is that in this stage of the game, his decision making is so much better than anyone else's. He can basically come back from like 15k gold disadvantages, 10k gold disadvantages without a problem. And like, that kind of a movement was extremely risky, and is probably something Sing Sing wouldn't have done, where it's as like, we'll say like in 30% of games you die in that situation because you roamed that lane when it was pretty risky to do so. 2 heroes showed 15 seconds before, then you roam into the lane and you farm the lane by yourself without your team. Again, warding a favorite spot. Like, think about your wards, honestly. Like, ward for a reason. This ward is a fine ward. I honestly, like, I'm not against it in thinking that it's not a good ward. But, again, for a reason. What objective do we want to accomplish? Like, right now, I'd really like to see another ward up here. Like, up on this hill, up on this hill. Even though the vision kind of overlaps, what it does is it gives you 2 objectives worth of vision, and you're basically saying we're going to fight on this half of the map, and we're looking to take Roche, and we're looking to take this tier 2 in either order, whichever order happens first. And like right now, this ward is accomplishing a lot, whereas this ward is not accomplishing a lot. Right? The action is set to happen here because that's where your team has vision, and that's where your team is congregating. So they deward. They miss your ward, though. That's why this is a good ward. It's basically this ward right here, but it's less likely to get dewarded. This also actually blocks the Ancients. Or it's pretty close to blocking the Ancients. So here, like, minor thing, positioning. I'm being pretty nitpicky. But, like, when you walk up to kill this ward, right, you got to be thinking about how their team is going to initiate. Their team might just initiate right now with Blink Black Hole. And Silencer is positioned well, so you're okay to stand like this, but like, this is a Blink Black Hole. You can see them right here. Like, Enigma could just walk down. Like, you've committed yourself for the next half second to doing this. And if Enigma is one of those heroes, which he is, he could blink and instantly Black Hole you guys. And that's a pretty bad way to start a fight with 3 heroes in a Black Hole. Granted, you have the ultimate counter in the Silencer. So since the Silencer is not there, your positioning is okay. But in another game, you'd get super punished for this. And you'd probably lose a team fight based on that. See how Silencer is just sitting behind? Like, that's really good positioning by him. And he's hyper aware of his positioning this game. So here, you're like chasing your Wraith King. Like, I think both of you should have blinks, honestly. Especially with Quap. Like, 3 blinks and silencer. Like that's pretty good lineup. So Wraith King takes a bad path, dies. Let's see what you were doing in this time. You get Black Hold. Silencer gets a really nice ulti again. Cancels the Black Hole. Wraith King dies twice because he was out of position. You walk under the tower. So this is like a segmented fight. Your grip got canceled by something. Alright. So this silencer played this fight really well. It's part of the reason you won it. Let's take a look at what you did. So you're up here. Wraith King takes a really shitty path. This is really shitty by him because you're basically like and what we saw in the fight. So Wraith King's gonna die way the frick over here and your team can't support him. Like if you had blinks, this movement's okay because then you can blink over here to help him. But it's just not. So here, like, you can just grip this guy if you want to. You don't have to. What you end up doing is walking in and getting hexed. You end up getting Black Hole by Enigma, and the silencer kind of bails you out. Then you're walking in, and you grip the Windrunner, who didn't need to be gripped. You tank a bunch of damage. You use a really nice stick there. Like, this is a situation where you want to be good at diagnosing whether people are going to live or not. Right? Rather than, like, your goal in a team fight is to use your spells most optimally and not stack them. And this is a really difficult concept, I think, for a lot of people. And it's still something I work on a lot of the times. Whereas, like, you know, if one hero's getting stunned by a Wraith King, right, is it necessary that I grip to kill him? Like, what else could I be accomplishing? Like, at this point, what you're expecting to happen is this Enigma has Black Hole on cooldown, but Lion and Tusk are sitting back here. So, as a Bane, instead of helping them kill this Windrunner, which, like, maybe you want to, but the instant that this Static Storm goes down, right, you want to be thinking, alright, I want to stop the counter gankers, or the people that can bail this Windrunner out, rather than pile onto this Windrunner, right? You're overkilling this Windrunner with your spells. And maybe she's a big threat because she has a lot of items. But here, if you're instead going to grip this Lion, gripping this Enigma, like, forcing action on multiple sides of the fight, then they have 2 heroes to save, and then they kind of have to pick between one or the other. Like, your grip made no difference on that Windrunner. But could have made a difference is if instead of you running towards the Windrunner, you're running towards the back line. You have to think about, like, how their fight is going to progress. And a lot of the times, like in that fight, basically what happened is Wraith King ran to a horrible position, and 2 heroes initiated on him, Windrunner and Phantom Assassin. And what the Enigma did is instead of going on the Phantom Assassin, he went to prevent your team from supporting the Wraith King. And that's sort of how you want to be, or I want you to be thinking as a Bane. Is I want to prevent their team from being able to support their Windrunner, so their Windrunner dies to 3 or 4 of my heroes when she's out of position. So, like, Enigma, like, while he shouldn't have Black Hole probably, like, his thinking was good. Was cut off the reinforcements rather than pile onto the hero that's already dead. So here, pick up a Blink. This is Blink Dagger Gold funded by Rax Gold. So, like, now your net worth is pretty inflated. Like, each Rax gives like 250 gold to each hero, so I think it's like a 1500 net worth swing for every Rax you take down. And you can see, like, the net worth is just, like, spiraling out of control. I'd say, like, 2 to 3k is probably that fight. And then an extra, like, 4 or 5k is from killing the Rax. So, if you're not into hitting Rax, be into hitting Rax. Because it gives you a shit ton of gold. But, state of the game, like, obviously you just took a mid-Rax, so that looks really good. Your Silencer is playing like a boss. He's got a refresher, and it makes them really hard to fight. So, because Silencer has a refresher, the way fights are looking to go is you're going to want to be up front with Wraith King, try to force Enigma to use Black Hole, silence the Black Hole, and then refresh into something else. Blink initiation. Like, fantastic. Like, that's a situation where that ward really paid dividends. And, like, not every ward is an amazing ward, but this game, like, I always like to think about how good was my ward when I placed it. This ward is, like, paid for itself over and over again. This ward has done nothing. And it's just because there's two wards on different sides of the map. So most of the time when you ward, you want to flood one side of vision rather than kind of like mix and match. One, it's more efficient for you because you only have to make one path through, but two, like, vision begets, like, vision is good in bunches, is what I'm trying to say. Because if you have some vision in that area, sometimes it's better to have more vision in that area. So you kill 3 heroes, you're like, hey, we're gonna push. Great. And I think PA just, like, BKBs and owns you. This is where you probably should have self-nightmared. But hitting the tower. So, like, here your blink's still up. Oh, you get a pistol. Alright. So, you're probably dead there. So this is like an understanding of PA's items. And this is part of the reason why I like Blink this game. Is that it gets you out a lot of this stuff. So Tusk throws his ice shards here, and it misses you. So your Blink is still off of cooldown. And like right here, when PA starts running up like this, you have to be thinking like, what is she thinking? Right? Is she trying to pull the creep wave? No. The creeps are already pulled, so there's no reason for her to walk up to do that. What she's looking to do is initiate. So you basically have a second of, I know what this guy's doing. Like, why is he walking this way? He's probably walking to blink. And so he blinks first, which is good by him. If he daggers first and like telegraphs that he's going to come, you can blink out of the dagger and not die. So that's like smart by him. But like, this is a higher level play that you'll see every once in a while. In pro games, especially with like Skywrath. Skywrath was really popular around TI4 for this reason. And this is what I call precasting a silence, or precasting a stun. Like, if you, for instance, like Bane's pretty bad to do it with, but if you anticipate that this guy is going to blink in, and you click and nightmare him right now, what'll happen is he'll blink in and be instantly nightmared because your hero will instantly turn to nightmare when he's in range. And this is precasting a spell. Now in this situation, it's not a like mandatory thing that you do it, but it's definitely a good learning opportunity. If you had grip, for instance, and you just instantly grip him as he's walking in aggressively, telegraphing that he's going to blink in, you can get a free grip on him right now under the tower. Like, he blinks in aggressively, he's instantly gripped because he walks into range of your grip, and he just dies to your team. Like, very high level play that is pretty difficult to pull off, honestly, and maybe Tusk would have interrupted your grip. So like, maybe this isn't the best example, but that's what precasting a spell on an out of range hero does, is the instant they walk, you're basically anticipating that they're going to make an aggressive play and walk into range, and the instant they do, you react instantly because you had it precasted. There are lots of situations where that can be really, really effective. Most of the time you need really good vision to make it happen. But like, for example, the reason Skywrath was picked a lot at TI4 was because Brewmaster was popular. And so there was a big emphasis on precasting silence on Brewmaster as he blinked in. So what supports would do in the pro scene is they would ward in such a way that they could see Brewmaster initiations from places they wanted to fight. So if they were pushing a tier 2, for example, right? Like 2 or 3 minutes before they were pushing a tier 3, you see a support smoke to ward here and to push this tier 2, for example. And then as Brewmaster like walked in to get his blink off, the Skywrath would be sitting back here, and he would precast his silence on the Brewmaster at a time when he anticipated the Brew would blink in, and so then Brew would blink in and be instantly silenced and die. But those are like, that requires future thought and future planning. Like, how are the fights going to go?
what's going to happen, right? In this game, you could be precasting a lot of your grips on Mortrid, the PA especially, or like the Windrunner, for example. But you have to set up for that. And what that means is you've got to be thinking in such a way like, this is how I expect the fights to go, or this is the way the fights have gone thus far. Most of the time, the way the fights are going to go is like Tusk is going to initiate. Here you get a blink, sentry. Alright, you just forgot that you had a sentry in your inventory. I think he's dead if you just instantly sentry. Sentry for the ward. Here, Nightmare the Lion. I was fine with your play there. Yeah, you probably didn't need to go BKB, honestly. Silencer ult was just going to protect your ultimate. They focus you. Alright, this is all kind of like a bunch of mindless fighting. Which just happens. It's a bunch of like... I think in lower level games, like I always ask myself, like, what was the plan? And a lot of times there was no plan. So like here, for instance, this global just happened. You can instantly grip right now, and you're 100% safe because PA has BKB'd. We are pretty sure Enigma doesn't have a BKB. We don't know. So I guess we're not 100% safe because we don't know that Enigma has a BKB. I know he doesn't have a BKB, but you don't. You could just grip right here. Like, I understand you want to like sleep the Lion, but like this sleep doesn't really accomplish anything. Lion hits for like 100 damage. Like, who cares if he's right Killer King, Wraith King? Right? Wraith King has 33 armor. Whereas Lion hits for 80. Like, let him right click all he wants. Go to town, Lion. So like this sleep's okay. It ends up being okay once the global wears off. But like here, you end up getting Black Gold. Alright, so Enigma had a BKB. Alright, so it ends up being okay. I think you could just grip instantly there though. So here, you kill this guy. And here your positioning is just not good. So your team is going to retreat in a way that's this direction, and you had plenty of opportunity to retreat that direction, but you end up retreating in opposite direction from your team. And so you're separated from the team, and they can't help you when PA comes on you. So this is like right in the middle of the fight. Like, this guy dies, and this is kind of like a nervous tick that Dota players have, which is like, I need to be constantly moving. Whereas like, see how they're all just like moving around with like no reason, no rhyme or reason, and you're kind of doing the same thing for like 3 or 4 seconds. You're just waiting for this Aegis. So instead of just wandering around, right, get to the best position possible. Like, what's the best positioning you could possibly be in for when this Mortrid revives? And that positioning would be like back on this hill. Right? Like, if all of you are here, it forces them to move the farthest. So, like, move to that position. Like, use the time rather than do nothing with the time. What ends up happening is you get flanked, right? Your team is all on this side, whereas you're on this side. And what happens is PA just blinks instantly to you, your team can't help you, silencer. Like, you're stuck in a situation where you're just going to die. It's a very minor thing. But like, that death was your fault in the sense that you weren't anticipating. That death was your fault in the sense that you, instead of thinking like, what's the best position for me to be in this situation and moving to it, you just kind of like, oh, the Aegis is coming up. Let's wait for it, and then let's like frantically pace back and forth. I'm sure that's something that happens a lot in other in other points of the game, and it's something that I do too. Is that kind of like pacing back and forth rather than making every movement matter. But that's definitely something you're going to want to work on as you get better. I think you played okay this game. I don't think that your Aghanims really accomplished much, and I think the instant you picked up your Blink, you got a free like pick on the Windrunner, and I think if you'd had that earlier, you really could have put out a lot more pressure on them, and maybe have slowed down PA's farm by ganking a few more times, and being a lot more aggressive on the map. So, like your Silencer played really well, honestly, and I think that's a big reason why you won. And Wraith King was pretty good too. He's pretty farmed, but like this game was very close, and I think in a lot of ways you could have made it a lot less close. And the ways you could have done that is one, like itemizing a little bit better for the game. Like Blink Glimmer Cape would have been really great this game, because then you can glimmer yourself when you grip and they can't do anything. I mean, they would have to black hole or impale you, or blink BKB, those kinds of things. Again, warding here, like what's this ward accomplish? The other thing I want you to work on is, when you're playing support especially, is thinking about where I can be useful before you move. Rather than just like moving to a lane, like what can I accomplish in this lane? Like there, did you really need to grip a sheeped unit? Probably not. It is a PA, so it's a little scary. So there is that to think about. The other thing I want you to work on is being aware of your other team's vision, and using that to your advantage. As a support, especially as a Bane, who is one of the best counter gankers in the game, you do not want to be showing yourself on lane, because you constantly want them to be thinking, oh, Bane is missing, Bane could grip me if I go on that guy. And you, by not showing yourself, will protect your team. You did. So those are like 3 big things I want you to work on, and I hope I gave you a lot of little tips throughout the game as well.
Dire's top barracks are under attack.
Trying to think if there's anything big I want you to work on.
Dire's top barracks.
Laning mechanics is another big one.
Dire's radiant is under attack.
Like, just the theory behind pushing and that kind of thing. Alright, well, that's it from me. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions or feedback for me, please let me know. If anyone else is looking to get a replay reviewed, shoot me a message in my Reddit thread or on YouTube at Guru Pathik. That should be it from me. If you have any other questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.